Hey, Juanika, thank you so much for not only speaking during the panel, but also this opportunity to connect with you in a smaller breakout setting. Um, I don't know if anyone wanted to begin with any questions that you might have related to what you heard. Um, I don't think Juanika's charging us about a minute here.
No.
Therapy for you. Yeah, so if anyone has an additional question for Juanika, feel free to raise your hand or put it in the chat. I see Giles.
Yeah, Juanika, I would just thank you for the way you shared your wisdom today. But I guess I just wanted to ask you how you felt mental health, mental wellness, and just the experience of the last 6 months for you in your career, how it shed light on maybe what everybody else is doing and what we could be doing. Yeah.
So for me, it's definitely been a journey and a process. Just because you work in mental health doesn't mean you have all the answers. And sometimes you have to take a step back and heal yourself before you can go out and support the community. And for all the great things that I wanted to do and be a part of in the community, I did have to take a pause and kind of do some evaluations with myself and figuring out where I was lacking and what was triggering for me to be able to identify how I could feed into the community then. And so I am definitely a huge, huge advocate for figuring out how to fill your own cup, figuring out what resources you need just to get yourself out of bed, first step. For me, it's meditation and body movement, getting those things taken care of. And then when you're ready to go out and support in the community, really doing that work of connecting and figuring out, what works for me may not work for everyone else. So you got to kind of feel it out, start small things. Breathing exercises, if that's not for everyone, I have huge populations of teens who they need body movement. So if we have to dance before we do a session, we're going to dance. If we need to busy our hands and we need to do a puzzle, then that's what we're going to do. But definitely making sure that you're tuning into what it is your body and your mind needs in order to go out and support and be that person. And knowing when you need to step away. So if someone is sharing or oversharing and you feel yourself becoming triggered, knowing that you may need to take a pause and tap in and get someone else to support that person. But, I come from a community standpoint, so I don't feel like it's just one person doing the work. We're all in it together and healing each other during this time. Because I may not have it in me, but I can go to my sister or I can go to a friend who may be able to be that support that I need in that time. And I think that this has definitely showed us that it takes more than just an individualistic approach. It does take community.
Thank you.
Yeah, and Juanika, one of the things I was wondering is kind of what is the current state of kind of Black mental health care here in Charlottesville. I mean, as someone who moved to the city and immediately sought out a Black therapist, it was a big challenge, and ultimately I ended up going outside of the city. Are things improving at all? I mean, this was years ago, but what would you have to say?
So things are slowly improving. I'm also a member of Central Virginia Clinicians of Color Network, and that is a group that we're trying to get off the ground where mental health, people of color. So we have Black, we have Brown, we have Asian, we have LGBT community coming together just to really try to figure out how we can empower and impact the community that we live in and work in. I will say it is growing in numbers. It's been an issue for me too. Just to be completely transparent, when I was looking for a counselor for myself, I had to go to Richmond because there is a lack. There's a huge gap here. We're small in numbers, but we're continuing to grow. I think another issue with Charlottesville and being so small is recruitment for coming to live here is not something that's very attractive to younger professionals. I'll just be honest. Most of my friends that I went to school with, they do not want to come here to support. There's just not enough going on for them, and that is a problem.
Do you think there's something that the nonprofit community can do to make Charlottesville a place that people of color, young people of color, want to be?
Yes, allow for that opportunity, but give us that work experience, but also let us know that there's a chance for growth. You know, most young people who are looking to get their feet wet in their profession, they want that experience, but they also don't want to be tied down to that. This is all I can do. Like they need to know that they are able to move throughout that organization and lend its hand towards leadership. Like I have a couple of friends who are educators, and you know that's not enough for them. They're going back to get their PhD. Charlottesville has been a place that has been helpful for them, but for long term, they don't see themselves staying here forever, and that's because they've reached their top. So we have to take that lid off. We have to, or we will continue to feed into people who then go out into other areas where they can continue to grow. So yeah, that's going to take some restructuring.
And I'm also just wondering how many organizations, I mean, Ellie, you mentioned what nonprofits can do. I'm wondering how many organizations are providing that space and supporting staff members, even, especially, you know, staff members of color,
Yeah.
making sure that they know what resources exist.
And that's something that clinicians of color has been fighting to do to try to make it more aware. And sometimes it's things that kind of get hidden under the desk, but using your voice. That's been the greatest tool to use is just continue to advocate, continue to let people know that we are here, we are available. We're small in numbers, but we are trying to definitely impact the community as best as possible. I'm always on social media when I hear other people of color looking for clinicians like QVCCN, give them a call, send them an email. They may not be able to support you, but they can link you with some resources. And I think that's the key, like link into those resources. Shameless plug for community, sorry.
I've really appreciated what you've talked about, and I just recently had learned about Central Virginia Clinicians of Color, and I'm so glad the resources are expanding. I do a lot of work with public housing residents, and I was wondering, given that the city budget cycle is starting soon, and there's a lot of talk about redirecting some of the funding that's gone to police, and also I think so many unmet community needs, just so many. And I was wondering if you have thoughts about what particular steps the city council could take in a budget way. And I also just wanted to give people some encouragement to write emails or call city councilors and urge them to do more on community-based services around mental health.
So for me, I think it's really important that the people that are going to engage in communities truly know about the impact of trauma. Because that's what we see a lot of times is someone's behavior, but it stems from some type of trauma. It stems from some type of past experience. And we see that as straying away from that social norm. So whatever the city decides to create or organize, I really hope that it is trauma informed and trauma based, because trauma looks so different for every person. You know, it's fight, flight, or freeze, or even pose, and that's mean you're going along with it because you don't know what else to do. And for so many people, that's their constant way of handling a struggle or any adversity that they face, because they've never learned how to develop those other coping strategies. And so you see someone running, and that's them. They're just trying to save their own life. It's not them, avoiding a consequence. And I think we need to, more work needs to be done there and the education of that to be very impactful.
And I saw Diana put your hand up. Oops. Mute. Oh, Diana, sorry, we can't hear you.
I am so sorry. The role of trying to mentor and share, value the skills of people who don't necessarily have the credentials and degrees into leadership roles. I think so often in nonprofits, you see people without the degrees in direct service positions, and that's what they're left to not have the resources they need to actually do their work or to rise in the organization. And we lose out on a lot of, they're not even asked to provide training or share their knowledge with their peers or leadership. So there's a lack of communication between the direct service staff and leadership. And I would love to see some programs to support how that the knowledge can be shared amongst staff, and that these people can be mentored into leadership positions without necessarily having to go through expensive degree programs. If you look at the leadership of nonprofits, very few leaders have a degree in nonprofit management. So, really valuing people's experiences on the job and mentoring those, I'm wondering how that might look. Thank you.
And I heard someone else. Oh, sorry, Juanika.
No, go ahead. Go ahead.
I just heard someone else getting ready to jump in. I think I may have cut him off, but I couldn't see who it was. So sorry. Sorry, Juanika, you can go ahead.
Okay, I'm sorry. So that's an ongoing conversation that I tend to have within my personal life and professional life, because you do see that. You see people who have that connection with different populations, with different students, with different families, but they don't have that degree. So, they're getting what what my kids call hood therapy. They're getting hood therapy or street therapy from, the bus driver or, but that's someone that they've built that rapport with. They feel safe with sharing that information with. But those are those same people, like you said, that's their job. Like that's as far as they can go without someone else acknowledging, well, what did you just do there? Like, how can we feed into that? How can we bring that into from the bus driver? How can we bring that into the school? How can we bring that into the counseling setting? And I think it's very long overdue. I've had some of my greatest gifts come from people who don't have a degree, and I'm completely fine with learning from all areas of life.
I know our time is ticking away. I did want to acknowledge a couple of comments in the chat. We have another person recommending Central Virginia Clinicians of Color as an awesome group. Highly recommend. In addition, a website, Seville Plans Together, is a website to follow the development of the new comprehensive plan and participate in it. So I just wanted to make a note of that in case people hadn't seen those two comments in the chat.
Thank you, Danielle. And Juanika, really, again, just want to thank you. I want folks to kind of be mindful of the fact that oftentimes we bring in experts from outside of Charlottesville and all the other places, and we have such a richness of resources here in the community. And Juanika is someone who is from Charlottesville and grew up in Charlottesville, and I'm just so appreciative of the perspective you bring. I would just maybe like to close by asking you, I mean, what are some of the changes that you've witnessed over your lifetime, positive and negative, and where do you hope the community will go now?
So I grew up in the era of stop and frisk. And so for me, seeing people I went to school with stripped down to their boxers just because they fit the profile. So for me, moving away from that has been tremendous. Because you see these people and you think, wow, how degrading. You're stripped down to your boxers and everyone can see you. There's no privacy in that. There's no humanity in that. So for us to get to a place where that is no longer existing is huge for me. Seeing my lovelies, I call them my lovelies, seeing my clients come in just broken, whatever's going on in the community or in their home, and just struggling just to get through the day. But they know that my space is a safe space. So in that moment, they can cry, and then they can go in that hallway and be the tough guy that they have to be to survive. Seeing them being able to develop those coping strategies where they can let that mask down. Those are things that are just so encouraging and inspiring. And when I say these kids, these are kids that I met in kindergarten, and they're now in 10th grade. So, we've done almost their lifespan together. And they're continue to come back and show up and try to do the work. Seeing mothers come in and say, I don't want to do this anymore. And they want to break that generational trauma. That takes so much courage just to say, I didn't learn it right growing up. I love my mom, I love my dad, but they didn't teach me right growing up. I need to do better for mine. That's amazing. Like for me, seeing people that look like me, Black people, saying that, acknowledging and acknowledging the impact of mental health on their life it's amazing. Like we just don't see it in my community, in the Black community. It's been such a taboo for so long. So seeing and acknowledging and doing the work has just been amazing for me. Yeah. And so I just hope that we continue to propel.
Thank you. And thank you everyone for joining us for the breakout. I tried to stretch it out as long as I could. Juanika, I was saying earlier before you joined, I was afraid I was going to turn this into my own one-on-one therapy session.
Quite all right.
Another time, I'm going to check in with you next time. Next time I see you, I'll do a check-in.
Yeah, exactly. Thank you guys for showing up. I wasn't expecting so many people to come in and chat with me. I appreciate it.
Thank you. And I would just encourage everyone again, to follow Juanika's work and think about how each of us can support this holistic healing that's necessary for us to be a stronger community.
Yeah. Thank you.
Thank you so much.
Thanks, Juanika. Great job.
Thank you, Juanika.
Thank you.
Juanika.